third time's the charm, right? It's week 3 of the college football regular season, and it's also episode 3 of All-American here from Studio A, alongside the magnificent Maria Trivelpiece. I'm Kyle Youmans, and there is so much to talk about, especially when it comes to the American Conference. You cannot talk about the college football landscape here in 2025 without mentioning the American Conference.
Well, just starting off with the South Florida Bulls, arguably one of the biggest stories in college football this weekend. Also, Army rebounding after their loss week 1 with a big win in week 2 over Kansas State. And then Temple Owls showing some offense, 2-0.
The 2-0 Temple Owls.
The 2-0, the Casey Keeler era. We're going to break that down. But man, Kyle, week 2 for the American. I was very excited.
Do you like scoring points?
Oh, I love scoring.
Do you like
points.
offense?
Love offense.
Me too. And there was a lot of that in week number 2 going into week 3. And we'll, of course, preview those matchups as we go along. We got to start with the biggest win of the week for the American. And it's the second week in a row that this team has had the biggest win of the week in the American. How about 2 straight ranked wins for South Florida? Here's the call, Dave Neal in the Swamp.
Grammatica for the win, and there it is. 18-16 the final score, and the Bulls explode off the bench.
Ah, the sweet, sweet sounds of the broken Gator hearts. I love it. As we welcome in Morgan Uber, who was on the sideline in the Swamp down in Gainesville, Florida, to join us here on All-American. Welcome back, because you were one of the originals of All-American, the original of All-American. But Morgan, we got to talk about these South Florida Bulls. What was that atmosphere like whenever the game winner was put through by Nico Gramatica?
Man, am I fired up to be with you guys, and am I fired up watching that back? You guys mentioned, South Florida having the best win in the American in week 2. I mean, it's the best win in the entire country in week 2, and it's going to be, hard to top for some time. I mean, this is a Florida team that had insanely high expectations, right? A quarterback in DJ Lagway, whose name was being thrown around with, the Heisman. And this kid is just a sophomore, right? 19 years old. But the environment was electric. It was by far the best I've ever been a part of. I have seen plenty of SEC stadiums. I've been in very, loud arenas, loud stadiums, but nothing topped what I experienced on Saturday night in the Swamp. Florida has the really cool tradition going into the fourth quarter of you hear Tom Petty, "I Won't Back Down," blaring through the speakers with fans, belting it out and their lights flashing all around. It's honestly one of the coolest scenes and one of my favorite traditions in college football. And after that, the crowd, it was deafening. Like, when I say I really couldn't hear out of my left ear, we as sideline reporters wear IFBs, and I only had a mono, meaning I could only hear out my left ear. I had to crank it so high to be able to hear my play-by-play analyst and producer because it was so loud. So I think to, Byron Brown in this offense, like how they were able to stay focused and, poised and composed in those final 2 minutes of that game is so impressive. And I'm still not over it. Still so much to break down and digest, but what a win.
I know, Morgan, we talked about it a little bit beforehand going into that game where we thought South Florida could possibly pull the upset, but it was going to be really difficult. So when you were looking at that game, what was it ultimately that just allowed them to walk away victorious?
The lines of scrimmage was definitely my biggest question mark. And we met with Coach Golish and his staff, and he said the same thing. The thing he was most concerned about was both lines of scrimmage, but particularly for me, I was most interested to see how the offensive line for South Florida was going to stack up against this, Gators front 7, who, going into the season was ranked, top 5, top 10 in the country, according to PFF. I mean, they have some dudes, first round draft picks. And, I think it did play to South Florida's advantage considering Caleb Banks was out for that game. Their top defensive lineman. However, they're deep on the D-line. This front 7, still just the size advantage that they had and just the depth, right? It's definitely everything leaned toward Florida's advantage. But I think the biggest thing was the tempo for South Florida, right? Through the first 2 quarters, Florida's defense did a really good job adjusting. And I think they played the tempo well. They were set. Their cleats were in the ground. They were ready. But all it takes is, one mistake, especially in this game, right, where they're trading field goals early. No one's being too aggressive and going for it in the red zone. They're trying to get points at a premium. But it was that Keyshawn Singleton touchdown for South Florida where you just totally see the chaos for the Florida defense, where they're not set. They have too many guys on the field. It was, really all it took was that one play. And, Singleton's a guy who wears these, these gloves that are literally 4XL. He has the biggest hands on the team. He's 6'3", really long and lanky, and has a huge size advantage going up against DBs. So, for him, was able to go up and get that ball, haul it in, and gave them, the lead and some momentum, and then Florida able to answer back. But, then it was that final 2-minute drive to set up the game-winning field goal. So, I think it was so impressive to me what South Florida was able to do in the trenches, despite, Florida having the advantage in every way on paper.
I think for the most part, Morgan, when you look at the special teams units, that played a huge factor. The punt that went into the back of the end zone, the returns from both sides that ultimately set up teams in a field position battle, that all kind of off to the side. I kept looking, when I rewatched the film of this game, I kept looking at the defense and looking at the pass rush from USF and from South Florida, what they were able to do to put pressure on Lagway, not making him beat him with his feet, because Byron Brown made Florida pay with his legs. DJ Lagway had no rhythm when it came to throwing the football, when it came to a clean pocket. What stood out to you about the way that Bulls defense got after Florida and made things tough on DJ Lagway?
Yeah, what a plan that Todd Orlando had. We talked to him in our meetings on Friday night, and he said one of the things coming out of that Boise State win that he really loved was the physicality that his defense showed in that game. And he was hoping that would carry over against Florida, and boy, did it. I think, the linebacker core, right? Jalen Shuler, what a story, for him, a player that, gets injured in the first game last year, could have thrown in the towel, could have redshirted, but decided to come back midway through last year, help his team get to a bowl game, and now is really the dude on defense. So for him, I think, and you heard Nick Saban say it earlier on College Game Day, right? That this South Florida team had some dudes on defense. So I think they were able to really, make this Florida offensive line and DJ Lagway uncomfortable, right? An offensive line that it's incredibly experienced, an All-American center. And but I think another thing too that I was really impressed with is South Florida's defensive line. They were able to bring in some guys, Devin Lee, a transfer from Vanderbilt, and then Josh Seliscar, a transfer from Texas A&M. And I had talked with Josh earlier in the week, and I said, what do you think? How does your defensive line stack up? He goes, I think we match up well. And they
did.
They did. And him and Devin Lee, they came from SEC schools. They know what it takes to be able to, play and battle and have that physicality necessary. And just an all around, solid South Florida defensive performance. And definitely, Lagway not able to do anything flashy at all in that game.
So they take down one formidable opponent in the state of Florida. They have another one coming up this week against Miami. So when you look at what they did against Florida, how can some of those same things be applied in this matchup against Miami if they want to win?
Well, I think it's the same thing, right? The question mark and the biggest challenge they're going to pose is what's going to be going on in the trenches. Ruben Bain, a total stud. He's, they're going to have their hands full again. But, my post game with Alex Golish, I asked him, what will you take from this game that you can apply and, as you go on the road in another tough environment and play another very talented team, in the state of Florida. He said, we have to be able to learn how to handle success. And they did it after the Boise win, but, this time there's more press clippings, right? They're hearing more media noise. They're ranked in the top 25. There's a whole lot more, but I think the way that Alex Golish has his team, it's so coach speak, right? Being process driven, he truly says, we don't have goals. If you follow the process and stick with that every single day process of being the best version of ourselves, then the end results are going to follow. And he said that to us maybe 100 times in our coaches meetings. And he's like, I know you guys hate hearing this stuff, but it's clearly working, and it's clearly true, and it's clearly how this team, works and believes and plays. And so again, I think hopefully the players were able to, enjoy the celebration on Saturday night and I'm sure the early hours of Sunday morning. But then get right back to the drawing board, because we have another really tough team in Miami. And, Carson Beck is an extremely experienced quarterback who has seen everything. So this is going to be an even tougher test for them, no doubt.
Morgan, I've always looked at the top 25 in 3 tiers. Usually 15 through 25 are pretty interchangeable. 5 or 6 through 15, pretty interchangeable across the board. They've got a tier 3, they've got a tier 2 win. Now they get a chance for a tier 1 win. There's nobody with more opportunity on the table going into week 3 of the college football season than the South Florida Bulls. It should be a fun one. Morgan, thanks so much for joining us. Coming back to All-American, back to your ground roots to talk a little bit of South Florida wins. And, hey, maybe it's not the last time we'll hear from you this season. Everybody go and follow Morgan Uber on her journey on those ESPN sidelines. Morgan, thanks so much.
Hey, I appreciate y'all having me. And let me just say, I truly think if South Florida goes to Miami and wins, the argument's there. They should be the number 1 team in the country, right?
They've got the best resume.
Best resume.
There's no question about it. So interested to see how this one shakes out for them. Again, should be another really good matchup. Alex Golish going to have his team prepared and excited to tune in.
Morgan, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again down the line. South Florida wasn't the only team with a big win and a bit of a party last week.
I'm gonna fight! I'm gonna fight! I'm gonna fight! Till I can't fight no more! Till I can't fight no more! And when I can't fight no more, I'm gonna lie down. And bleed a while. And I'm gonna get up. And fight some more. I'm gonna fight. Till I can't fight no more. I'm gonna lie down. And bleed a while. I'm gonna get up. Fight some more.
All right, I've watched that clip maybe 15 times, and every time it gets even more intense for me. It really is a special moment when you get to see these gentlemen. And Louis Riddick, he of course took very good note of this, going from a college football Saturday into an NFL Sunday, and talking about how Army, with that sacrifice, that perseverance, that grit, the brotherhood. And I think that video showcased it quite a bit. It really was a special moment. Big-time win for Army to take down Kansas State and do so and come from behind fashion.
Well, I think we talk so much about what it's like to have Army and Navy in the American, and I think this is one of my favorite reasons why they get to be in this conference, because we see that on a weekly basis, even in the games that they lose. And so it's so awesome when the rest of the country gets to see that on display. They got to see a lot of it last year, especially with how successful Army and Navy were in this conference. And man, one other note from that video is I've had a lot of conversations with Jeff Monken. I didn't know he had that in him. Like, he's so even keel. Like, I guess we don't get a lot of locker room video, but man, he's got a lot of fighting too. I'm not surprised.
It honestly makes me emotional. And I mean, I've gotten interactive with him a little bit, not nearly as much as you guys have, but the way that he takes pride in leading that program and leading the servicemen that he gets to in that vicinity and in that venue at West Point, I mean, he takes pride in that. And we've heard it before on podcasts and in interviews and things, and he says it, but he walks what he preaches. I mean, he goes by what he preaches. And to have a moment like that and you see the answer from his football team, it really was. It stirs up emotions that you don't know can come from a football game. But let's talk about the football game. The X's and O's side of things early on, down 13-0 early, time winding down in the first half, a backup quarterback as the starter for the first time in his career. Army was not shaken, Maria. They were not shaken on the road in Manhattan, hostile environment. They were pumped to have the Black Knights in there. They had no flinch and were able to make things happen.
Well, I think that's a benefit of playing for Army, right? Because you are literally trained not only when you're at football, but when you're in class, when you're doing trainings, to not flinch in the difficult situations, right? And so Army doesn't really get phased too much when they're down. Even in that game that they lost last week, there was still fight till the very end, right? And so Kyle Youmans comes in, he gets his first start as a Black Knight. He gets a little bit banged up too within that game as well, but they just keep pushing forward. And I mean, that's one of the reasons we love watching these teams play.
At the end of the second quarter, where time was winding down and Youmans had to roll out at the goal line, final seconds of the half, and find a receiver in the end zone. That was the turning point for me, even though it didn't completely catch up Army. And, of course, these big special teams plays still happened in the second half. We could talk about what they did right and what they did wrong. But that play at the end of the second quarter was the key to winning this football game in my eyes, because they were shut out through the entire first half, and that gave them some belief going into halftime. They compounded on that belief right after the fact. So I think for the most part, Army showed that fluke game, and yes, it was a fluke game now, in my opinion, against Tarleton State, is in the past. Now they can move forward and say, hey, don't forget about us. We're still contenders in this conference.
And I really liked just seeing Kyle Youmans step up in that way, because we talked a lot about Dwayne Coleman in our first episode, because that's who we thought we would see at quarterback. He's still a little bit banged up. Kyle Youmans comes in and he does a great job just finding a way to win. And, he spoke in the post-game press conference and he said, Dwayne Coleman might be banged up. I am a little bit as well, but he just wanted to find a way to get the Black Knights in the win column. And here's one thing that really stood out to me too about him, is that we think it's just a brand new name, right? We talked about Bryson Daly all last year. We talked a little bit about Dwayne Coleman. Youmans made 1 or 2 appearances last year for the Black Knights, but he's been at Army really since 2022, because he played for the prep school. Then he was there in 2023, didn't play in any games. 2024, he appeared in 3 games. Now he gets to step in. So he has experience. And so I think that's one thing that we forget, is with Army, they have some extra years, and I think that helps. When your number is called, you go in and you do a good job. Speaking
of, as much as we give credit to the Army Black Knights for the weapons that they have and the defense that they have, I don't know if we've mentioned Noah Short a whole lot. He's incredible. I mean, you talk about an underrated player when it comes to the Army program. Noah Short did almost everything. He threw a pass and completed it deep down the right sideline. He was a ball carrier. He was a receiver. I mean, he did a little bit of everything. He was a weapon. And we've talked about the guys in the past that have either moved on. Udo from last year, who had a great season. Bryson Daly, who graduated. There's a lot of guys that have had impact on this Army team the last 2 seasons. Noah Short's a guy that we don't mention enough, and I think we have to give him credit where credit is due.
And I think even if we haven't mentioned him enough, his teammates know that he is such a weapon. I'll give you a good example. When we went into the locker room post-game last year when Army won the conference championship, we're looking for somebody to lead the mini mic interviews.
Okay.
Everybody says Noah Short because his great personality. Wow. They love the way that he brings the camaraderie to the team. The interviews were fantastic. And so I think those little things speak to the kind of person he is and the kind of player that he is, then just shows up on the field. So I think Noah Short, we'll talk about you a little bit more. We apologize that we've maybe not given you the credit that you deserve.
You need
here
the
on
credit.
All-American.
First Black Knights win over a Big 12 opponent since September 23rd, 2006. That was a 27-24 overtime victory on the road at Baylor. Fun fact, I was actually at that game. I was in the building at Floyd Casey Stadium for that game back in 2006. It was also Army's first power conference win in a true road game since a 21-13 win over Wake Forest on the road back in 2016. Here's what they've got coming up next. A bye week this week. They get to rest up after really a tough start to the season. Then you turn around and you've got North Texas, who is 2-0, playing Washington State this week.
Then you got back-to-back road games against the high-flying East Carolina Pirates, Catton Hauser at quarterback, and then you've got Jalen Kitna and the UAB Blazers, a couple big quarterback battles on the horizon.
I like this bye week coming up for the Black Knights. I think it gives them an opportunity to get healthy, and then a big test in their first conference game against North Texas, who I think we're going to learn even more about in this game against Washington State this week.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, let's hear it.
The defense plays like they have. I think this team's going to be fine. They're going to wear teams down. They're going to win the time of possession battle like we've truly seen Army in the past. Who is this Army team on offense? What is their identity on offense? And just an added layer to this question, who's going to be your quarterback moving forward?
I think they're going to have to rotate between the two guys until they figure out who's it going to be. I think to answer who this Army team is, I think they're going to have to run the football a lot. Okay. That was one thing that Helms talked about in his post-game presser as well, that he wants to play behind that O-line and just keep pounding the football. And so I think that that's their identity. That's who they're going to be moving forward. Now, who's going to be leading that offense? I don't know yet because I haven't seen enough of either quarterback.
To Helms and back, it would be the conversation that I would say. If you go back to Dwayne Coleman, I'd be fine either way. I think Helms is a good player. I think we saw it against Kansas State. I know what the talent level is for Coleman, and we've talked about him in previous episodes. I wouldn't be surprised if they go back one way or the other. If you're an Army fan, I'm actually kind of interested. Can you tweet at me? What would you want to do? At Kyle_Youmans. Go on to Twitter or X if you type in Twitter on the URL, it still shows up. When you get to that point, just tweet at me. I want to know what are you guys thinking? Because I don't have connects really within the program. I want to hear what you guys are thinking when it comes to the quarterback conversation up there in West Point. No quarterback conversation at this point in time. There was maybe in the offseason about the Tulane Green Wave, but Jake Retzlaff is the man, and he led a come-from-behind victory on the road against South Alabama down in Mobile. I mentioned Bishop Davenport last week. That's the number 4 right there, that quarterback for South Alabama and the Jaguars. Really good quarterback. They did a good job of being creative with their play calls, their opening of the playbook. They were up 14-0, jumped up right then. But don't count out the Tulane Green Wave. They were back in it almost at the snap of the fingers, put up 27 unanswered points to respond in a big way. This was a back-and-forth game. The Jags tried to make their run in the fourth quarter, try and make this a ball game, but Tulane comes out on top 33-31.
Well, Tulane, as you mentioned, goes down 14-0. Then they're up 24-14 at the half. And I think that South Alabama is a better team than most people give them credit for. I think they have some weapons that this could be a team that people are talking about a little bit later in the season as well if they do some things right. Tulane, though, John Summerall wasn't really pleased with this performance. He said, yeah, he took the win, right? He's like, I'm never going to sit here and complain about a win. But he said the Green Wave was just too sloppy in too many areas. And if they play that way with upcoming opponents, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I think that a win is a win, right? The quote. But I think if you're John Summerall, if you're a Tulane, you're looking at this and saying, okay, where do we need to get better?
They were up 33-17 with 5:30 to play, right? If you take that final score, you take out the final 5:30 of the game, I think it's a completely different tone. I really do. I think Tulane dominated the game ever since. They started slow and they finished slow. But the meat of the game, they played their brand of football. They ran the ball effectively. Zuberi Mobley, 82 yards and a couple touchdowns. I liked what we saw from the freshman, Javin Gordon. I might be saying his first name wrong, but he's a freshman. He looks like a star. He put up 5.2 yards per carry in each of his first 2 matchups. They ran the football effectively. Watch out for Gordon as a guy that we start talking about more and more because he's earning more and more touches as a true freshman in that system. I believe that team that was up 33-17 is a closer indication of what Tulane actually is, as opposed to South Alabama, who, give them credit, they fought their way back and they found their way back into that ball game. But I think that was more of a wake-up call on how quickly teams can make a comeback happen in today's age and today's era of college football. Tulane was in complete control of that ball game. South Alabama just fought their way back in.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think that this could be helpful for Tulane going into their next matchup because now you know how quickly teams can get back in. And, sometimes as an athlete, you hear your coach preach about the little things and all the details that you have to pay attention to, and you're like, yeah, like I'm a good player. Let's just move on. Let's let it be. But now you get really close with a team that maybe you shouldn't have gotten as close with, and I think this can help. This could be beneficial going into a game that Tulane really wants to win.
You know what I want to start doing? I'm going to have to talk to our producer, Zach Fisher, about trying to set something up. I want a button. I want a button in the chair where I like close the laptop. I put the button up here, almost like that easy button that
I
they used
really
to have
don't
on the
know where
Staple
you're going
commercials.
with this, and I'm
Yeah.
intrigued.
And I want it to be KY's Game of the Week alert, where I hit the button and the lights start going crazy, and it's the Game of the Week alert. I think that's something we need on this show, and maybe we'll start trying to figure that out in the future. Even if it's a tablet, I'll push a tablet, whatever it is.
Okay.
This is the Game of the Week for the American. Whoop, 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 whoop. KY's Game of the Week. You've got Duke on the horizon. This is a Duke team that, of course, they got a quarterback. That quarterback's name is Darian Mensah. Where did he go to school last year?
That sounds really familiar. I think he played for the Tulane team,
He
right?
played for
yeah,
Tulane.
right. Yeah, okay.
Played for Tulane. Mensah comes back to Youmans Stadium. I've thought about making the drive. It's about an 8-hour drive from Dallas to New Orleans. I would make this drive. If somebody can get me a credential into that matchup, I would probably make that drive. That's going to be an insane game.
Hint, Tulane communication staff, Kyle would like a credential to Mensah's return back to Youmans Stadium.
I challenge the Tulane fan base, for those that watch All-American on a weekly basis, I challenge you to let loose in this ball game. I want that atmosphere to be unhinged. I've been to New Orleans. You guys come unhinged every weekend, or really every night, because it's New Orleans. I want that place to be an absolute madhouse when Mensah returns. And it's not anything against Darian Mensah. Of course, we talked about him in a positive manner all year last year. I love watching this guy play football. Had a rough game last week against Illinois. That's a good football team that they played at Duke this past week. You can't get too high on this ball game if you're the Tulane Green Wave. You cannot let the atmosphere be too much. The atmosphere is going to be great, and I can't wait to see what it happens. But if you're Tulane, keep it bottled up, keep it in a box. And if you really look at the X's and O's side of it too, I would argue they have the quarterback advantage. I would argue Jake Retzlaff is a better complete quarterback, better complete passer, as good of a runner as Mensah is, maybe even better there. It's a conversation, but don't be upset that Mensah's gone. Be ready to make a statement. And I think that's what Tulane's going to try and do this week.
I want to see Tulane have the same level of motivation that they had against Northwestern, because I think that John Summerall took the fact that Northwestern wouldn't allow them to wear those white uniforms and used that to amplify his team and get them ready for the game. I think that it didn't get too big for them, though, right? It wasn't out of control. It didn't hinder their performance. So I want them to do the same thing with this Mensah game. I think that I want them to get up a little bit for it because, hey, he left to go to another school, and use that as momentum for this game on Saturday. I think they did a good job against Northwestern of not letting it get too big, but using just enough motivation to help them win the game.
That's the other thing, too, about Duke. They're coming off a big loss, 45-19 in that game against Illinois, who's a top 10 team, arguably in the college football ranks right now. Duke is going to look to establish physicality, and they're going to look to establish an intimidation factor early. There's a saying that we use in some of these college football circles: don't get punked. That's exactly what I'm telling Tulane early in this football game. They're going to be a little extra juice on it because they know they're going to try and protect their guy. They're going to try and protect Darian Mensah. They know it's going to be an emotional day for him. Don't let Duke punk you early on, and I think you've got the better roster, you've got the better team to get it done. Moving on, we talked about Tulane having a talented team over the last couple of years. They continue to have a talented team. It's the first time in quite some time we're going to talk about the 2-0 Temple Owls. How about this? 97 points over the first two games of the season. The Owls have taken off in Philly. When was the last time that those points were scored? A little Temple trivia. Do you know?
I'm going to guess 2016.
Okay.
What's
2016.
Don't Google it.
I didn't Google it. That's
Don't
a good
cheat.
question. That was the Matt Rule era.
Okay.
That's a good
yeah,
a good answer.
That's why.
I'll say 2018. I do not have the answer to this.
Okay.
So Zach is Oh my
gosh. Okay. Well, we were not close. Maybe Zach Fisher can tell us this. Who was the head coach at the time? We can Google this. We can Google
Temple head coach.
1927.
Yeah, I'll take care of that. You tell me about what you liked from the Temple Owls so far.
What I've liked from the Temple Owls so far is the offense. I mean, we just put up that trivia question to show how many points this team has scored in their first 2 games. Now, here's the thing. It's 2 games against 2 teams that they should beat, right? But I think for me, the thing is that they're not just beating the teams they should beat close. They're blowing them out. They're having good offensive performances. It looks like there's just a little bit more of a spark in Philadelphia around the Owls.
So just so you know, Haney Miller, he's a Temple Hall of Famer.
Okay.
He was inducted into the Temple Hall of Fame in 1973. He was the head coach of Temple University football from 1925 to 1932. They went 7-1 in 1927. Harry J. Jacobs was the team captain at that point in time. That's all I've got.
That's more than I've got. That's a long time ago.
They hadn't won a season opener since 2014.
2014.
So if that's the case, I guess that's a fair statistic. But I thought they would at least put up points.
Yeah, but
putting up 97 points in
a lot of
first time in
points.
100 years that they've done it. That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's exciting. I think it's an exciting time to be a Temple Owl fan. Now, they have a big test this weekend that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But before we get to there, let's take a look at some of the things that Temple's done, especially Evan Simon at quarterback. I think that's something that I've really enjoyed watching him. It was funny at Media Day. We asked Casey Keeler a question. He's like, well, he didn't win the starting job yet. And then he went on to say how he has to earn it and fight for it. Well, he is earning every bit of that starting position right now, especially after 2 games. Yeah,
he finished 8 for 10 passing, 173 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's a pretty good ratio when you can only throw 8 passes and complete 3 touchdowns against the team. Now, they played UMass, they played Howard. This is the way that they're beating teams. Got it. But they're beating those teams the way that you should beat those teams. Those are going to be future accountants next year, and they're not going to be playing in the NFL. You should beat those teams pretty good. And that's what Temple has been doing. I'm old enough to remember back in the early 2010s when Robert Griffin III was at Baylor and people were putting him in the Heisman conversation because of one single statistic. He had more passing touchdowns than he had incompletions. Well, there's a guy named Evan Simon who has more passing touchdowns, 10, than he does incompletions, 9, in his first 2 games. So not to say that Evan Simon should be in the Heisman conversation. It's a different conversation. However, the way that he's played is about as impressive as anybody through the first 2 weeks of the season. He has an incredible talent. And watching his film, he's got the type of quick release that NFL scouts look for, NFL teams look for. It's electric, not to copy the graphic there, but it's electric to watch because he gets the ball out of his hand so quick. And he's got a powerful arm. And I think the guys like Xavier Irvin, Peter Clark, Kajaya Hollowayne, I think is how you say it, Hollowayne, the 3 wide receivers that he throws to the most, those guys can ball. I liked Hollowayne a lot, number 11 in the red. Watching his film this week, he was fun to watch.
I think this team and Evan Simon in particular, it's been so much fun to watch the progression and see him get better as well. And so I would love to pick his brain on what exactly was it that he thinks is making him better. Now, let's talk about that test that they have this weekend. Oklahoma coming to Philadelphia to take on the Owls.
That's gonna be fun. Can you move just your head to your right a little bit, other way? It's been a long time since we've had a Temple helmet on the backdrop because they've been playing good football. Ride that momentum a little bit. If you win against Oklahoma, it'll be the greatest moment in your program's history, arguably. I know they've had a long history. We just talked about 1927. It'll be one of the better moments in their history. Oklahoma, John Mateer playing at an extremely high level right now. John Mateer, who played quarterback for Oklahoma these first couple weeks, is possibly the Heisman front runner right now. Played his high school ball at Little Elm High School up in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. When it comes to Temple, when it comes to this program, you've got nothing to lose. You're playing with house money over the next 4 games. Yes, that is a tough schedule, but since you're 2-0, you go into the toughest stretch of your season. You lose all 4, that's very possible. These are 4 tough matchups. but you're still in a bowl fight. You're 2-4, and you're going into a stretch where you can win some football games. If you win one of the 4 or more, which, by the way, you play 3 of those 4 at home, if you win one of those 4, you're at 500 halfway through the season or better halfway through the season. So you're playing with house money right now. Go in there, do your best, execute the game plan, first-year head coach, ride the momentum that you've got right now, see what happens.
I think for me, I've said exciting so much, but that's just what it has been watching this program, because I think the energy is just so different. And I think even with this really tough stretch, as you said, 3 of them are at home. You lose all of them, you can still come out good on the other side.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued to see how Saturday goes for the Owls.
I am too. I'm intrigued. Do I think it's going to be a win? I don't, just because I do believe Oklahoma is on a resurgent year. They're turning things around just as much as any other team in the country. They're going to test Temple heavily on the road for Oklahoma anyways. I don't see it being a win, but I do see Casey Keeler taking some positives from this game and still building upon it. I think they're going to win one of those 4 games, and we're going to come back whenever that happens. We're going to be right here in Studio A talking about the 500 or better Temple Owls team and something to look forward to. I want to talk about one more team. There's a couple more teams, but just one team.
We got a little bit
one
more to
team
go.
In particular. I want to hand it over to the voice of the North Texas Mean Green, Dave Barnett.
Shoulder-to-shoulder blockers, handoff up the middle, goes McGill, touchdown, and the Mean Green win it in OT. 33-30.
All right, how much of the game did North Texas have the lead against Western Michigan? What do you think?
At the end.
They did not win. They did not lead until they won the game at the end of the game. Well done. Good job,
Let's
Maria.
go. Did that make sense? You know what I meant by end,
Yeah,
right?
I'll give you credit. I'll give you credit.
Yes.
Maybe extra credit. We got it up there. 33-30 in double overtime. Western Michigan held the lead the entire game, but North Texas just never quite went away. Drew Mestamaker finished with 18 for 33 passing, 224 yards. Couple touchdowns. He was incredible. Again, 3rd straight game, going back to the First Responders Bowl against Texas State last year, where he had a phenomenal debut. 3rd straight game where he looks like a legitimate baller at the quarterback position. North Texas takes advantage, and they're 2-0.
Well, for me, Drew Mestamaker having the confidence to just go in there in the overtime and be able to come up with the passes when he needed them to, I think that was one of the final pieces of the puzzle that I needed to see to be convinced that he is the right man for that starting quarterback position. Now, don't get me wrong, that first week where he put up, 50 plus against 51 against Lamar, I should know that I did the game, but yeah. I was a lot of points. I was pretty convinced then. He did a great job in the bowl game, but he's showing that leadership and confidence that you want in the person who's in charge of your offense. And so I'm pretty sold right now on Drew Mestamaker. You know what I'm starting to slowly be sold on?
Oh.
Slowly.
What is it?
I think the North Texas defense could be pretty good.
No.
I think so.
No.
It's my way too early prediction.
Oh.
Didn't give up a point in the first quarter. Now, they had some breakdowns, and I think that
Trivelpiece's trivial prediction?
I don't even think it's that trivial. I really like what Skylar Cassidy is doing, and I think it's going to take a little bit for everything to click. But from last year to this year, I'm liking it so far.
I remember there was a show, I think it was called All-American, that said, hey, watch out for this North Texas defense. They've got a new coordinator. They've got some transfers, and they're going to play pretty well compared to what they've had in the past. Well, they did it again. They took it into the second quarter scoreless. Nobody had a score in the first quarter. And the run game for Western Michigan was still able to have success, but they were held to 87 yards passing, and that's a huge upgrade and an incredible improvement on the defensive side of the ball. The way that they've flipped the script defensively from one of the worst, if not the worst defense over the course of their last couple of seasons to a team that can shut down teams. I mean, they did not allow a single point in 5 quarters, their first 5 quarters of the 2025 season. I would challenge anybody to go find the last time North Texas did not allow a score for 5 straight quarters. It's probably a long time from now. When you look at the way that they made adjustments to was super encouraging. From half number 1 into half number 2, the way that they were able to piece it together was really impressive from a defensive standpoint. On the offensive side, You know what stands out to me on the offensive side? 7 players with at least a dozen receiving yards. Not just with 1 catch or 2 catches, with yardage in a first down. I mean, that's 7 guys that would have had at least a first down worth of yardage to their total. And the 2 that had touchdown receptions came from 2 of the guys with 2 or fewer catches. So they're getting guys involved. They're getting multiple players involved. That's coaching. That's scheme. That's looking at Eric Morris and what they hired him to do 3 years ago for North Texas and saying, we're going to stick with you. We're going to remember what you're good at, and that's call an offense. That's call the plays. And he's done that throughout the season. They put up 51 points in week 1 against Lamar. Check. A come-from-behind victory where you still threw the ball around pretty efficiently and found 7 different guys that made a significant impact in the receiving game. Great. Run the football. Cool. All of that's great. Give credit to Eric Morris and this offensive coaching staff for doing what they do best. That is call creative plays and to get guys in space and to have some success. Because, yes, when you have a quarterback like Drew Mestamaker who's looked great but never started a varsity game at any point in his high school career and is coming in and you've all of a sudden just acknowledged him and now he's your starter, you need guys like that, smart people in the building on a headset that give you that scheme. Give them credit because they continue to find the right guys now in year 3 of that system that are fit for that scheme. And then you're starting to see that. You got another chance to see it this week against Washington State as well.
So that leads me to my next question. You just said offense, check. They're utilizing a lot of weapons. Defense, we're almost at that check. They're looking a little bit
about the defense.
They're looking a little bit better than they have, especially from last year to this year. Washington State, the opponent, coming to Denton.
Yep.
What will it take for North Texas to have a check mark at the end of that game?
Well, you got to win it, first off.
Well, yes. How did they win it?
Yeah, they've sold 21,000 tickets as we sit here recording right now. It's going to be a good crowd. It's going to be an exciting atmosphere. I'm excited to see how North Texas backs their football team because it's about time to back that football team. They were 5-1 last year, kind of sputtered down the stretch. That's what I want to see in order to have the consistency. The consistency is what is needed for them to win a football game. Whether it's in the passing attack, the balanced attack on offense, you're going to get that. But you need to have that consistency from a defensive standpoint that we've seen through the first 2 games. I think they're good enough, and honestly, on paper, I think they're just as talented, if not more talented, than Washington State. They're 6-point favorites for a reason. Vegas agrees with me that they might be the more talented team on paper. I don't think for North Texas – you've got to have the defensive elements, but you also can't get too tough. You can't get too high going into this game because when you look back over the course of North Texas football, there have been games where they're hyped up and they're going into it and they're a little too pent up and aggressive over it. You've got a couple of those on the horizon, first with these 2 coming up with Washington State and Army. Then you've got 2 more in later October with South Florida and UTSA coming to town. I love what we've seen from North Texas so far. Keep the consistency. Don't get overhyped because you don't need to be pent up. Start fast, finish strong, and you're going to have a chance to win any ball game you're in.
I think you make a good point of just staying level, right? That's how you are able to win those bigger football games. And when you look at that North Texas schedule, that's not an easy next couple of games. Washington State, Army with the big win.
All 5 of those games are tough.
Exactly. We just saw South Alabama take Tulane down to the wire.
Yep.
As we've mentioned, South Florida a ton. So I think that you have to stay level and you have to stay consistent. I think consistency is going to be the key word here for the Mean Green. Now, one team who has began with some consistency, they're hoping to keep it because last year that's where they faltered a little bit. It is the Navy midshipmen, and I did not stumble over wanting to talk about Navy this week. So that was a good improvement in consistency for me on my part.
I was about to say, good for you.
Yeah,
that's
I love
a good
that.
improvement. From week 2 to week 3, we get better. We get better, and that's exactly what Navy did as the game went along against UAB. First conference game of the year, by the way, in the American.
We love it.
I love seeing conference action back at it again. If you watched the show last week, I said Jalen Kitna is the real deal, has some real talent. We saw that in this matchup. But what else did we say about Navy? Their depth. And they had success using that depth against UAB. Just wore down the Blazers as the game went on. Good back-and-forth ball game. This was a really entertaining game. It was kind of a weird weather delay, lightning in the middle of it. But when the game was actually being played, it was really fun to watch. It was even better to watch on replay once we got home later in the week because we had to skip the lightning delays and watch the film that way.
Much easier than watching that live.
Way better than watching it live. 24-24 at the half. UAB shut out in the second half. Costly turnovers really plagued the Blazers, and that's ultimately how Navy ends up winning this football game. But they go right back to the core guys. They go back to Heidenreich. They go back to Alex Teska. Of course, Blake Horvath. The first time we've mentioned him in this show, I'm going to check that box. I love talking about Blake Horvath. All those guys have played a good ball game. But can I give credit to the tight end?
Let's do it.
Cody Howard. That dude is a dog. He had a 60-yard reception in this ball game. Do you want to go tackle Cody Howard?
You know what's so funny that you bring up his name?
I don't want to tackle
I
Cody
don't want to
Howard.
tackle Cody Howard. I am on the call for Navy and Tulsa this weekend, right? So
Tune in.
Please tune in. Another conference game. I talked to Landon Robinson this morning, and I said, who's one player that we don't talk about enough who needs more credit? You know who he said?
Cody
Howard. He said nobody
Cody.
works harder. He said he is so tough. He's the reason we won this football game. Now, those were his exact words. So you and Landon Robinson on the same
that makes
page.
me feel a lot smarter than what I really am. I think he's a dog. Good blocker. Not a huge weapon in the receiving game, but when you get him the football and you get him in space, it's like trying to tackle a freight train. There's just no way to do it. How are you going to knock a freight train off the tracks? He had one stiff arm. I think the guy's still falling down at the moment into the ground, and there's still grass in his helmet to this very moment. That's the whole mantra of Navy football, that toughness, that versatility, the balance that we saw. And then I've just got to talk about how I know I've got a North Texas education, but my brain just can't wrap my head around the fact that Blake Horvath completed 6 passes for 168 yards. That's 28 yards per catch, per reception.
You're good at math.
28
Good job.
yards. That's a North Texas education. 28 yards per catch. That's insane.
Is that a lot?
That is a lot. That's 3 first downs almost. I mean, it's a really it was a fun game. I thought Navy looked like what we thought Navy would be. Very impressed with UAB. We'll talk a little bit more down the stretch, but I thought UAB played really good football in this game and made me kind of change my mind a little bit on how I view the Blazers.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into UAB in just a little bit, but just to kind of tie a bow on Navy here, I think that, as you said, they have so many different weapons, and the depth is going to be what's going to propel them to be successful.
They're like
this
2
year.
or 3 deep in most crucial
and they
positions.
wear people down. So when they are in closer games, they can still pull somebody next man up mentality. So how does that play out? They have Tulsa, as we just said, this weekend. When you're looking at that game, what does Navy need to do to continue to be successful in the American Conference games?
Yeah, well, we gave Tulsa a lot of credit last week. They had a big win against Abilene Christian, fell this week to New Mexico State. 21-14 was the final. I think it's going to be similar to the story of UAB and how that game shook out. Tulsa's going to give Navy everything and more, and they've got some speed to do it. Right. I think the speed on the boundary is going to really challenge the Navy secondary, who is good and usually very, very tight-knit, very close. But if they gave up the points like they did to Jalen Kitna and UAB, they can easily have the same thing with Francis and Tulsa. So when you look at the boundaries for this game, that's where I'm going to kind of focus initially. I think there's going to be a lot of focus on the speed of Tulsa, getting to that outside of the numbers, getting to the sideline. That's where the biggest challenge lies. But I ultimately think Navy will wear down Tulsa. This game it'll be tight in the first half for the most part. And then at some point, that flip is going to switch. The switch is going to flip, whatever it is. And Navy's going to start finding their rhythm and pulling away.
I think you said it fine the first time. It still makes sense, kind of.
Either way.
It
happens either way, just like Navy. It's
like
going to happen regardless, one way or the other.
One way or the other. Make sure you tune into that game, another conference game. Let's talk about Memphis. You love talking about Memphis. I feel like we haven't talked about them. We've talked about them, but not as much as we normally do because maybe they haven't played the bigger opponents that we're excited to.
Played Chattanooga last week, played Georgia State this week. The Memphis Tigers still look like contenders, though.
Oh, 100%. I think for me, the thing with Ryan Silverfield is he just he reloads every single year. I think have the question mark of what's going to happen when Seth Hennigan leaves. You're going to lose pieces on offense and defense, and he just keeps putting new guys who step up and execute the way he wants them to.
Yeah, when you look at the way that Georgia State started on offense, I thought for a second, only a second, that Memphis was going to be in trouble in this game. Just because they're on the road, Georgia State has a pretty solid fan base. They had a good crowd on hand. The way that they found their rhythm with Cam Brown was interesting because they tested him with his arm, tested him with his legs early. Good player overall. Wouldn't be surprised to hear his name later in his career as well. But Memphis stopped messing around right at the start of that third quarter, locked down on defense, put up 21 unanswered points, and relied on Brandon Lewis to take him to the promised land on the offensive side of the ball. There's the adjustment from the first half to the second half. Negative 22 rushing yards. Woo! The Tigers were hunting in the second half, and they put up the 21 unanswered points because of it. Brendan Lewis, 16 of 20 passing, 196 yards. He had the rushing touchdown as well. The Tigers have now scored 20 or more points in 42 consecutive games, the longest active streak in the nation, dating back to a win over Tulane in November of 2021. They ran the ball for 205 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. Count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 rushing touchdowns. Memphis is still the legit contender in this league. There's a reason they're receiving votes in that top 25 poll.
Well, for me, it's just the consistency of Memphis, not just this season, but the entire time that Ryan Silverfield has been there. I think that he, as I said earlier, reloads every time with good players. He likes to recruit those high school kids and develop them as well. But I think it's just the consistency. He's winning the games that he's supposed to win, and then he's going to contend and compete in those games against bigger opponents. And so he's 2-0 right now because his offense did what they were supposed to. The defense makes a great adjustment in this last game. They do what they're supposed to. I think they can carry that momentum into this matchup against Troy.
Shout out to my guy DeMarco Ward, by the way. Not 1 but 2 pick sixes in back-to-back games. Second pick six of the year. For those that don't know, I cover the Cowboys full-time, and it reminds me of what Deron Bland was doing in 2023 when he tied the NFL record. He had a couple of early pick sixes, and then it built on that because teams would just be like, you know what, let's try it. Let's test him. Let's see if we can establish this early. Right? And then obviously it didn't work. I'm wondering how long teams are going to test DeMarco Ward, and then from there, how much is he going to make him pay? Because he's made 2 straight teams pay with a pick six. Really good player across the board anyways. Just take the pick sixes out of it. He is a lockdown corner in the American, and maybe a reason why they have a chance to, again, make a trip to the American Conference title game, make a trip to a possible college football playoff. They are receiving votes in the AP top 25 along with some of the other teams in the American. Isn't there 4 total now? South Florida, Tulane, Memphis. Am I missing one? There's one more there.
I think you might be right.
Navy's got one in there too. So all of that being said, Memphis is right there at the mix at the top of the conference. You cannot forget about the Memphis Tigers.
They're always lurking. They're lurking in the background, just waiting to pounce.
That's going to be their tradition on the show. It's talking about Memphis lurking, ready to pounce. They have a matchup against Troy coming up this week. Troy 1-1, had a win over Nichols last week, 38-20. Met for the first time last season. And now they've got a chance to meet again. It was actually the first time since like 1941 that they had met. Last year, it was a 38-17 win for Memphis, continuing to step up the competition level. Chattanooga, Georgia State, Troy is the next one up. Troy comes into this matchup off of that Nichols win was in week 1. They came off of that loss to Clemson last week where they hung in there. They had a 17-3 lead at halftime. Heartbreaker. They gave up that loss to Clemson on the road in Death Valley, and then now they've got a chance to turn around against Memphis. Memphis can't allow them to do that.
Yeah, Memphis needs to play the game that they played the first 2 weeks, just be consistent on both sides of the football.
I like Brandon Lewis, too.
I do. I like the veteran leadership that he brings. I think that was a big thing for Ryan Silverfield when he looked to get him in the portal, and I think it's paid off so far. Another veteran leader. Veteran quarterback for the East Carolina Pirates, Mr. Caden Hauser.
Caden.
We talked about him a lot in that resurgence of East Carolina when Blake Harrell took over. Blake Harrell loves him. He's the guy. Caden Hauser loves East Carolina. He showed it in this win against Campbell. A 50-plus point performance for the Pirates.
You know, I mentioned this earlier in the show about North Texas, how they had 7 different players with 12 yards receiving or more in their box score. I don't know if I've ever seen a box score quite like what I saw in their 56-point outburst against Campbell this past weekend. 15 players, Maria.
How many?
15.
15.
1-5 had at least one reception. I've never seen that many guys with at least one catch in a game. That's a 10th of your roster, even in college football. That's a 10th of your roster. If you want to really get into it, that's probably 25% of the guys that actually play on a college roster.
You are just spitting the math facts today, Kyle. Maybe you should be a math teacher if broadcasting doesn't work.
Yeah, probably not. 7 players had at least 14 rushing yards. That's just domination. They took Campbell to the woodshed. They absolutely destroyed the Camels at home, which is a good bounce back. I like what they did bouncing back from a tough week 1 matchup against NC State. They made sure to lay down the dominance in front of a great crowd there at East Carolina. The Pirates are ready. They're back. And then Caden Hauser looks great. Since taking over as East Carolina's starting quarterback against Army last October, guided the Pirates to a 6-3 record. Part of that Blake Harrell resurgence. He's had 4,300 passing yards, actually 4,300 yards of total offense, over 478 yards per game. There's more math for you, Maria. He's been fantastic, and there's a reason why he's the captain of the Pirates.
He is leading not only the Pirates, but he's leading the American right now in yards per game. He's averaging 340 yards passing. 340 yards passing per game.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, right? See, I'm giving you some math back, but I think that this is something that the Pirates needed, right? That was a tough week 1 loss. Now they're back. They show that they can do some great things offensively. I know Campbell isn't as great of an opponent as some of maybe the other teams they play, but I think it's really helpful when you have that kind of a bounce back and come up with a big win.
And they move on to another rivalry, a rivalry renewed for that matter. Coastal Carolina coming to town this week. Traditionally been a really good group of 5 program.
Yeah.
The Chanticleers, as they like
Such
to
a
call
cool
it.
mascot
It's a
name,
pretty
I will
sweet
say.
name.
I have to admit.
I don't like the field. I don't like the teal field.
I like the regular
Not a
colors.
fan.
I think that the color matchup of this game, like we're going to like stop talking about X's and O's for 1 second. The teal with the purple.
Uh-huh.
I
Good
love those.
matchup.
Yeah, like I love those colors. Purple's my favorite color.
The Carolinas know how to do uniforms.
They really do.
Just in general, they know how to do it.
I'm a big fan. I just totally derailed the conversation, but you were talking about this matchup. Continue.
Yeah, traditionally a good group of 5 program. They don't appear to be the same level as they have been. I mean, they get blown out by Virginia in week 1. Former North Texas quarterback Chandler Morris goes off 48-7. The final there. They turn around. They played Charleston Southern, which should have been a pretty big bounce back, kind of like what we saw from East Carolina against Campbell after facing NC State. Not the case. They won 13-0 in week 2. Wasn't a phenomenal showing. And then ECU, they turn around. They take care of business against Campbell, but then they've got a gauntlet of their own right coming up over the next 4 games. You've got Coastal Carolina at Coastal Carolina on that teal field. It's going to be such an ugly field. I don't like it. They do give up free concession stands, though, at that stadium, though.
Wait,
apparently.
what? Free
yeah,
food?
That's like a legit thing. They're like free food, free drinks. They do not let you pay for their concession stands.
Wow.
So if you're a fan of the Pirates, make your way down there and cheer on your team because you're going to get at least a free
hot
dog
dog
out of it. Yeah.
Love a good hot dog. Okay.
BYU does not give away free food, but they're going to make their trip cross country to East Carolina anyways. Army at Tulane. They also do not have free food at Youmans Stadium. However, all 4 of these games are tough. I think ECU should take care of business against Coastal Carolina.
I think they have a good opportunity here against Coastal, even though it's on the road. I like the way that the Pirates offense is playing. I think it gives them a really good chance against the Chanticleers. I'm having ECU on this one.
Okay, I would too.
Picking it.
Yeah, so you can pick it because
I can pick
an American
it.
foe
It's an American
versus
foe.
a non-American foe. It's like district and non-district along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of in-district, speaking of in-conference, we talked a little bit about Navy and their showing. Normally, we talk about whatever teams are playing, whatever teams, and we kind of sandwich them together. We thought UAB belonged in their own segment.
Yeah.
I thought the Blazers played a good brand of football in a losing fashion. The way that they battled against Navy was impressive. And I think you look at the way that Jalen Kitna has played. I just want to apologize. I think I was a little harsh. I was still right. Navy wore that team down, and the depth took advantage of that game. But this team is close. Trent Dilfer has this team on the verge of doing something significant, and I think they've got what it takes to make a run at a bowl game this year.
I think for me, the thing that stands out about UAB is their offense. I like Jalen Kitten at quarterback. I think he does a really good job. We just talked about Caton Hauser leading the American in passing yards per game. Jalen Kitten is number 2 right behind him. And so I think the combination of that, and they're getting healthy running backs back in the system. Javon Jackson. They also have Isaiah Jacobs, who's supposed to be one of their best backs, but he was just hurt for so long. He's starting to get healthy again. And so I think the combination of that on offense can help them hopefully make a bowl game this year. The defense is still the question mark for me, but I think that Steve Russ, I like him. I think he just needs time to get his system into place, and he needs to take a lot of new guys and get them all on the same page.
Yeah, I trust their offense. I think we've seen that already. You talk about like Corey Milliner as the wide receiver who's had a big impact. 6 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Solomon Beebe, Iverson Hooks, both guys are reliable targets for Kitna. I've been around Kitna since he was back in Burleson, and I've gotten to know his dad since his time at the Cowboys facility back in the late 2010s. I think he has it. I think Kitna has what it takes, just like Dilfer was saying, to be a pro-level quarterback. And you've seen that. He's 2 for 2 for having phenomenal performances, including against a really good Navy defense. What they don't have is a steady defense themselves. Allowed 42 points against Alabama State, 38 points in their matchup against Navy. Only Baylor, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, and UTSA. Wow, I didn't realize UTSA was even that high up. They are the only teams in the country that have allowed more points through their first 2 matchups. So I'm surprised at how well they've run the ball. I think that's good. They've been running it in terms of yards per carry, 5.9 yards a pop right now. That offense has been good. The defense just has not been, and the struggles have continued through 2 weeks of play. And it's not going to get much easier. However, they do have a matchup this week against Akron that should be a winnable ball game, a team that has not scored a point so far this season. So if you needed an infirmary, you needed a pharmacy for your defense, Akron might be the prescription you were looking for to face here in week 3.
How about that analogy? You're just hitting all the subjects in school. First he did math. Now he has the analogies from English class. Good job. So you're
educating. Wait until we get into social studies later.
Oh, goodness. Let's pump the brakes on that one. But I do agree with you. What was your favorite subject in school?
I was a social studies guy.
Social studies?
Yeah, I liked history.
I liked history, too.
Yeah, we talked about history. We went to 1927
with
Temple. We've hit history. Come on now.
Sports is so educational. I think there should be separate sports classes because you can cover math, social studies. We could probably do science. They have a whole sports science show.
Start petitioning your local education departments now.
Yes, certainly do that. But anyway, back to UAB and their defense. I like their offense. Defense needs some work. I think that they have an opportunity to get better this week against Akron.
Akron, 68-0 week 1 against Nebraska. They had just 175 yards of total offense. 10-0 last week. They fell to Wyoming. They had just 228 yards of total offense. Did not score in either one of those. Outscored 78-0 in 2 games. Not one of those teams that's going to light up the scoreboard. Jalen Kitna should have a field day. I want to see this as the best performance of the year, both offensively and defensively for UAB. I think it's possible to do that. I think even with that FCS matchup with 52-42 in week 1, Akron has a chance to be a great scenario for UAB. And this Blazers team could be 2-1 going into the meat of their schedule.
I agree with you. That schedule leads into the schedule for all of the teams that are going to play this weekend because we got a lot of teams in action here in the American. Army's the only team not playing. They have a bye, as we already talked about.
Why did they get a bye so early? What have they been doing?
Oh, it's
beating Kansas State?
Something like that. They were rewarded after beating Kansas State. First page, Kyle. Which one are you circling?
I'm going to circle that Washington State North Texas game. I think Eric Morris, who was once the offensive coordinator at Washington State, there's a little extra emotion in that ball game. I think it's also a chance for them to really prove themselves. They did so by winning a game on the road against Western Michigan. Check that box. But I think the atmosphere is going to be creased a little bit for North Texas. I think DATQ Stadium is going to be a fun place to play this week. So with all that being said, I expect North Texas to win that game, and I think it's going to be a fun one from the jump. And then, of course, who's not watching South Florida and Miami on the CW this week?
On the CW.
Kind of interesting to see that game on the CW. Carson Beck, Miami, top 5 team in the country, and then a team that arguably has the best resume in the country, South Florida, right there too. I think both of those teams could really use a win like that this early in the campaign.
Absolutely. South Florida, Miami, that OU Temple game, I think that's another one that we'll certainly take a look at as well. Taking
a look at the second page here, Prairie View A&M goes on the road to play Rice. Rice looking for a bounce back after falling to Houston in the Bayou Bucket last week. We talked about Navy and Tulsa. Maria Trivelpiece will be there for that one. The Battle of East and Coastal Carolina. That'll be a fun one as well. And then, hey, if I get a credential, I'll make the drive down there to New Orleans. I know I said I'll be at Washington State in North Texas, but I can be persuaded.
You could be convinced that there's a credential.
To make a drive to New Orleans.
Maybe a free hot dog involved as well.
Nah, that's at Coastal Carolina.
I know, but you still might be able to get one. Credential and a hot dog.
There's cheap drinks down in Tulane. I know that. Lots of good football, too.
Lots of good football this whole week. And there was some good football last week. We talked to Morgan Uber about that South Florida game.
Yeah.
But you know who else we should have a chance to talk to?
Who's that?
The man who won it for the Bulls, Mr. Nico Gramatica.
Snap, hold, kick. Good! The Bulls have beaten Florida on the last play of the game. South Florida 18, Florida 16. 2 top 25 teams down, 1 to go next week.
The Swamp was silenced, and a big reason why is because of this young man joining us right now, Nico Gramatica. Nico, welcome to All-American. Thank you for joining the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We're really excited that you're here. We're going to start with that play that we just watched. Can you walk me through what was going through your mind as you saw that ball go through the uprights?
So I've had this question asked a lot now, and really I don't really remember a whole bunch of that play, but all I really remember is just my mental notes I was telling myself and how I was talking to myself during the kick, and that's the same stuff I do in practice, and so that's what I was just trying to make it like practice.
What are some of those things, especially in the moments leading up to it? You knew you were probably going to be called upon. What goes through your mind? What are you saying to yourself?
So for me, I'm just praying, and I was praying a verse, Exodus 15:2, and it talks about at the end, exalt him, and I just wanted to give him all the praise, for good or bad. I just want to always give him the praise, and that's what I was doing in that moment. It was just praying to God, good or bad, I want to exalt you, and that's kind of what's going through my head in those moments.
I love that. Now, when it does finally go through, I know you said that you don't really remember the actual moment, but once you were able to come to a little bit and maybe some of the shock and the excitement wore off, what were you thinking?
I was just happy, like very happy. I got to call my parents. My parents weren't at the game. I got to call them. I got to call my brother, my uncle Santiago, and that was very, very exciting to call them. Because of all they've helped me throughout my life. They've pushed me to be the best person I can be, helped me as an athlete, helped me personally as well. And it was just awesome to get to enjoy that moment with them over the phone.
You mentioned your parents. Your dad in particular has probably been in some similar situations like the one you were in this past weekend. Yes. So what advice has he given you as you were growing up being a kicker?
So I started growing up playing soccer, and I didn't start kicking until my sophomore year of high school. But he always, from when I was playing soccer at 3 years old, he always taught me work ethic and to pour into your process, pour into your work every single day, so that when that moment does come, I'll feel ready and just ready to go out and make the kick.
You were ready not only in that final kick, but you were 3 for 4 in the game. So coming up big in multiple instances for the Bulls, how were you able to remain so locked in, especially in a game against a ranked opponent?
just the same mental notes I tell myself every single time is what I did in all four of those kicks. Actually, I do the same mental notes. I say the same stuff every single time, and I just try to talk to myself, keep myself positive. I know Rev talked about it the night before, and just your thoughts control your mind. So I was just trying to keep my thoughts very positive and just have everything positive going into the game.
Let's talk about your team a little bit. 2 wins against 2 ranked opponents. What has it been like being a part of this program, especially this season so far?
I think the big thing that is the brotherhood in the locker room. I think we've grown tremendously over I've been here for 2 years, and I'm connected with so many of the guys, and that's what the football is about, is those friendships for life that you're going to keep after the sports, after sports is over. And I got to make great friendships with everyone on the team. We go downstairs, we play pool, we hang out downstairs, and that's the biggest thing for me, is making relationships that will last for my whole life.
What is it about this team in particular? I know we've seen really good glimpses of South Florida the past couple of years, but this season, what has made you able to come out victorious, especially against these top opponents?
I think it's Coach Golish always preaches it is your process and buying into your process, and it's your everyday work that you do leading up to the game, so you feel prepared. And that's what helps me feel prepared, is going through my week and doing everything I've worked on to be prepared for the game. So I think just keep pouring into our process will help us keep growing.
Another big opponent this upcoming weekend. What have the conversations been like leading up to that moment?
So I know for the whole team and for like the specialist room as well, it's kind of the past is done. Now we're looking forward, and we have to focus on this next opponent and take it 1 week at a time.
Coach Golish has been using the AAR quote that this ain't the same old South Florida. I know that a lot of you have said it as well. Why is that so true?
I think it's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is the brotherhood in the locker room. We've grown tremendously in wanting to work for each other, wanting to play for each other, and not wanting to let your teammates down. And I think we've grown as a very tight-knit group with so many guys, and it's just awesome to see.
Well, you've certainly been fun to watch. That South Florida Bulls team is very exciting. We're looking forward to watching you again this weekend. Nico, thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, how about that? Grammatica. Right?
I think they just call him Automatica. I don't even think it's Automatica Grammatica.
Oh, I know.
I think just Automatica.
Well, that comes from his lineage.
Right, exactly.
It comes from the family ties too. But I mean, that's exactly what he's become, and you can kind of see it even in that interview. I think the way that he talked about the team and talked about the brotherhood and talked about his job and how to execute, all of those things kind of played a significant factor in his success, not only against Florida, but really that's why he's going to be a successful kicker in his career. I thought there was one point in that game against Florida where I was just as impressed with him stepping up and drilling the very easy 32-yarder to win it, but he stepped up and drilled a 58-yarder that was just that close to being through, and they would have had a chance to win that game at that point anyways.
Yep.
So he's a weapon, and there's a reason why he was Special Teams Player of the Week in the American, and probably won't be the last time.
Well, I think the thing that stood out for me was when he said every single kick he has the exact same process. So he even mentions, he said, I missed the 58-yarder, but I did the same thing on the 58-yarder that I did on the one that won the game. And so I think that's something that, athletes talk about process all the time. We hate the coach speak, but it is so true, and that's why he's successful.
And I don't think it's as true about other positions than it is about kicking.
Yeah.
Because kickers have to have a process and they have to be locked in. I want my kickers to have no other care in the world than to be a kicker. And that's exactly what it looks like. That's what Noah does. That's why he's great at it. And that's why if there is a 58-yarder that's made by Grammatica at some point this year, I don't think I'd be shocked. I think he will hit one at that point.
I know. It was just so much fun to get inside his mind too. The first thing he was like, well, I've been asked this question a lot. This is how I approach it. Well, we ask students.
And I said, no, I meant Nico. But either way. Yeah,
either
Grammatica,
way,
he's the
either
one that
way,
gets it done.
Nico Gramatica joins All-American. He was fantastic. We're always talking about student athletes on the field, as we did with Nico right there. But we also had an opportunity to catch up with a student athlete who did something beyond the field that we certainly needed to highlight. Larry Pickett Jr. from Army football rescued a man from a burning car, and he's here today to tell us about his heroic mission. Larry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We are so excited that you're here because, as we just mentioned, you did something beyond heroic this past weekend. So can you just walk me through what was going through your mind in that moment?
Yes, ma'am. My family came up for the game on Friday night. We found our way to the city on Saturday. Coming back from the city Saturday night, we came upon a down power line, saw that there had been a car that crashed off to the left. So both my father and I got out of our car, ran towards the car that crashed, saw that there was a gentleman who needed help, and we got him out and got him to safety.
What was the conversation like between you and your dad? Was it just instantaneous? Did you immediately know you had to get out of the car? Was there any thinking involved in it?
Funny enough, there was actually no conversation, no hesitation. We kind of just got out of the car and just ran right at it and saw that somebody needed help and just helped out as best as we could.
Was there any fear as you were approaching the car, especially you said down power line, it didn't look too great?
I mean, it all happened so fast. There wasn't much time to think about like the environment or the state of the accident. I mean, jumping over the power line to get over to the car was one thing. Like I said, there was no hesitation. We just saw that somebody needed help and went and helped.
Where do you think that reaction came from? Do you think it's probably from your military training or just the kind of human that you were raised to be?
I think it's both for sure. Definitely just growing up in my household, my family and the values that they've instilled in me. And like you said as well, being here at West Point, that's just the type of people that West Point molds. I'm sure that if it was any other cadet, that they would have done the same thing, just because that's the type of people that West Point creates. And like I said, my family as well.
What has it been like for you just being a part of that West Point culture and tradition, not only on the football field, but off the football field as well?
Man, it's great. It really is a true brotherhood. Everybody loves each other. Everybody cares for each other. We know who everybody is, where they're from. It really is a true brotherhood. And just being able to be around all the players and all the great guys, all the great coaches, it really is something special.
Now, you've had a few days to process what happened and you taking action. So how have you been able to process, and what are your thoughts about what you were able to accomplish this past weekend?
I'm just extremely grateful that we were able to help out that gentleman. Even more grateful for the first responders that responded to the scene and were able to take care of him further and take care of the scene further. I'm just grateful because the situation could have been much worse for sure.
And as you mentioned, you played that game on Friday, and then you had this happen on, was it Saturday? You said you were coming back from the city, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Saturday night.
So your first weekend making an appearance on the Army football field, and now you also you saved someone's life. So busy weekend for you. Can you just walk me through what the last couple of days have been like?
It's been pretty hectic, honestly. Just getting back into the groove of school and football after the weekend. And like you said, being able to play in that first game and contribute to the team and being able to help out that gentleman, it's been a crazy few days for sure.
And obviously your dad has had an impact as well. He jumped out of the car with you. So what do you think that says about the way that he brought you and your siblings up?
I think that it says a lot about him as a person. He's very, very selfless, puts everybody before himself. And I think that's a big part of where I get it from. He's definitely one of my biggest influences. I'm very grateful for him. And it's just a testament to the person that he is.
And one last question for you. When you look at what you did this past weekend in saving that man from the car, what do you want people to know about you or about Army and the experience that you've had there so far?
Just going back to it, that's just the type of people that West Point molds and that West Point expects us to be. I'm very grateful to be at a place like this. And I would also just tell people just answer the call to serve, because you never know when it may be your time to step up and help someone else.
Well, Larry, you certainly did that. You answered your call this weekend. Thank you so much for your service, not only this weekend, but in your future as well.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
How about that? That was incredible. It was all over the national news, and we are so gracious that Larry took some time to talk with us. And
out of his schedule. Oh
my goodness. I was scrolling through his social media preparing for the interview, and every major national news outlet had already talked to Larry. I was like, wow. And every single interview, he just is so poised, so like present, and his answers just floored me. I was so impressed. Like, we talk about what these Army cadets do while they're on the field, right? And we also talk about some of the military training, but how about the stuff that they're doing to quite literally save lives?
I still don't believe the video. And of course I believe it. It's an Army cadet, and it's somebody that takes pride in being a man and being a leader in the community. And that's part of what they build at West Point. And I think that's part of the respect that we have as a country when it comes to the Army Black Knights. But so it's not surprising that this happened, but it looked like a movie. It legit looked like a movie, the way that he was able to go run over there without hesitation.
Yep.
And he said his father helps out. I mean, it really was an incredible moment. And you never want anything like that to happen to anybody.
No.
But for those that are thrust into that situation, whether you ask to be in that situation or not, you react either one way or the other way, and you either run or you fight. And Army Black Knights, they fight. And I think it showed off the field exactly what they're about on the field as well. And it was really a special moment, and something that I think Coach Munkin's proud of, the country is proud of, and everybody that's surrounded with the American Conference is certainly proud of. And he's a great young man. That's really cool to see. Awesome interview on your side as well. I think it was all that's a incredible moment, and we had to shine a light on it.
Again, we're just so grateful that he even took the time to talk to us. I think the other part, too, is he made his first appearance on Saturday in the game. So I said
in
to him,
a win against Kansas State.
No, that was the loss.
Oh, okay.
The
before
loss.
that.
Yeah, before the loss. Yeah, so they lost.
Yeah.
But still, he makes the appearance, and then he quite literally saves a life. And I think it also speaks to it's his father getting out to help him. So I think it's his military training. It's everything he does at West Point, and then also the guidance that he's gotten from his parents.
Yeah, it really is. Incredible story and an incredible human being.
Well, speaking of Army, they made our top plays again this week.
And they were at number 5, weren't they?
They were at number 5.
This was the game-sealing interception. Bad throw from Avery Johnson, just to be completely honest. Behind the receiver tries to make a one-handed grab. You know who did make a one-handed grab? That man right there, Colin Madison. How about the swoop in to seal the deal for the Black Knights? Get the win over the Kansas State Wildcats. I'm fired up for this win. I'm fired up to see
you fired up?
Anytime I see the American have some success, I'm always for it. And especially when it's Army rebounding from that loss to Tarleton State the week before. Kudos to beat Kansas State, who's actually a state, and you get it done on the road in Manhattan. Little Apple wasn't ready for the men from West Point.
They certainly were not. We talked about Army today. Let's talk about South Florida, but their men's soccer team. This is Jaheim Wickham in net for the Bulls. Watch this. Boom. Save. Oh, does it again. He had 8 on the night, and that helped them tie Central Florida in this game.
Fooled me once.
Nope.
Shame on you. No, it's not going to happen. He doesn't even need to get fooled once. He wins twice. That extra save was even more impressive. This ended up in a 1-1 draw, so they needed this save to end up salvaging the matchup. I want to see this one more time. This is an incredible shot right there. Whoop! Save 1. He charges at it. Save 2. Just pops it wide. Well done. I love saves. I love it on top players.
Fire me up. I love it. Let's go.
Talking about kicking, there's only one man that really had the country by storm. This is more about the situation than the actual kick, but this man could kick. His name's Nico Gramatica. Don't forget it. Don't call him Noah. This guy is a dude. Nico Gramatica down the middle to win it in the swamp. Pressure couldn't have been higher. And yes, the Surrender Cobras were out in the swamp. No it wasn't the wrong type of reptile. It was no reptile at all. It was a bull getting it done. Sad Gators everywhere. I love it. South Florida with the win.
We've seen this clip so many times today on All-American and all across social media, and I never really get tired of it.
My favorite part is Alex Golish running, trying to find Billy Napier on the other sideline, trying to shake hands. And you know Billy Napier, there you see it right there. He doesn't want to shake hands. That's the last thing he wants to do at that point. He wants to just run back into the locker room and force his athletic director to send emails to everybody else in the SEC and to Florida Gator Nation. South Florida forced a "we are sticking with Billy Napier" email because of this kick from Nico Gramatica. South Florida with a big-time win. Let's move on to number 2 in our top plays.
I think we should after all of that. So this is your alma mater, Kyle, so you'll probably get excited for this one as well.
Yeah.
In the 90th minute, Claire Niedermeyer finds the back of the net. Victory. What is it? Light the tower? Is that what y'all say?
Light the tower, baby.
There you go. Light the tower in Denton.
You know, I sent off a couple text messages after this game was over because I've only missed one home soccer match for North Texas this year. I was covering the Cowboys-Eagles game this night, so this was the one game
What happened
I
in
missed.
that game?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that one either.
Okay.
But I want to talk about what Claire Niedermeyer did in this game. Tied 1-1, no longer in the closing seconds of the second half. Of course, I'm not on the call for it because every time I'm not on a call, they hit like a walk-off grand slam to beat Texas Tech in softball. They have like 5-set thrillers to beat top 25 teams in volleyball, and then they have a last-second goal to win it at home. Claire Niedermeyer, you are a superstar. Met your parents at the last game, too. They were very nice people. Congrats, Claire, on a big-time goal. Moving on to number 1, FAU. They got the win over Florida A&M. Didn't get to talk much about the Owls and Coach Kitley getting his first win. This was a big part of it. You get away from that football. That's mine. I'm going to block it. I'm going to run into the end zone, and it's a touchdown for the Owls. Of course, we talked about Zach Kitley being an offensive coach. Who knew he could coach some special teams, too?
Florida Atlantic, another team putting up 50-plus points in the American. Big win for them over Florida A&M. And, man, I love some good defense. Flew out of nowhere.
That's not good defense. That's good special teams, Maria. Okay. Special teams are people, too.
All right.
That's a part of the game.
Know,
it's the third phase.
I know, but I still think it counts as defense.
No, it doesn't. That's Josh Roberts. He's a freshman. Blazing past, getting the block.
Great special teams.
Thank you. You got to give credit where credit is due. There's a special teams coordinator for a reason.
I know that. All right. We're not even going to go there. Anyway, we love top plays.
Lawrence Johnson was the one that picked up the ball in the end zone, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
You done?
I'm done.
You're done.
I'm just going to chalk that up as an L. I have no defense for what I said.
That's okay.
So.
It's not your fault. I just want to give credit to special teams. That's all.
I know that's special teams.
Special
but
teams are special.
But anyway.
Special. Here, you close it out. You say goodbye to everybody that watched All-American this week.
Thank you to everyone who watched All-American this week and put up with me and my wrong terminology, Kyle and his shots at certain programs in the SEC.
And all my math.
And all of his math, all of his reading. We hope that you like and subscribe to All-American. We enjoy having you here, especially on week 2. We'll see you next week on week 3.